Coming into an organization that's 20 years old has a lot of benefits. This organization has legacies of success and is already rooted into the community. It obviously has some failures, but this organization has also learned how to learn. So we already know how to look back at what we've done well and what we haven't done well, and how to use that and build for our future growth. So as we move forward into the future, we already have an idea and knowledge of who we are. We're grounded in who we are, but we also know that there is more to learn and there is more to do. And so we're really excited about the next 20 years, is that we have so much to build from that we've already accomplished so far.
The work isn't done, for sure, but it has been incredibly rewarding to see over the 20 years of this foundation. I mean, my adult professional life in Martinsville-Henry County has actually coincided pretty well with the timing of this foundation, and so I've had the opportunity to see it, from inception all the way to where it is today.
I'm very proud of Harvest Foundation and what they've accomplished over the last 20 years, and I think, there's been a real tenacity by the organization, the staff, and the board members to just keep moving forward.
The Harvest Foundation was created in 2002 from the sale of Memorial Hospital, which was a really important asset and remains an important asset to our city and county here, and the whole region really. We took the assets that were tied up in that hospital and turned it into a private foundation that serves Martinsville and Henry County and its citizens.
We needed to understand how a private foundation worked and what the parameters were, and I think we realized pretty quickly we couldn't be all things to all people. We sold the hospital for, I think, about $170 million, and that seems like a ton, and we were obligated to spend 5% of that every year on grants in the community. But as much as that seems like, it's really doesn't allow you to do everything and be what everybody wants you to be for all their different causes.
We started with about $152 million from that sale, and we have spent about that amount in the 20 years, and the corpus of the money is now up to almost $300 million.
I can remember hearing about the formation of Harvest, at the time you think, wow, that's a lot of money, and I hope we don't, blow through it and have nothing to show for it.
When the foundation was created, there were a lot of inputs as to the ways that the foundation should expend its resources. And those early days, it was difficult not to just react to every opportunity that we saw, because if we did, we wouldn't be around for the long term for our kids and grandkids and for the long term of this community.
If someone gave you that money and said, you invest it any way you want, but just make sure it never goes away, it's a whole new challenge. And we had some really smart people that knew what they were doing and still do, and they were able to double the money and spend as much as the original amount and do things in this community that many communities this size would never have the opportunity.
We kind of started out somewhat reactive just because we were trying to figure out the best ways to address the needs and challenges in the community. What I have seen over those 20 years that the foundation's been in existence is that it's had the opportunity to go from a more reactive grant maker to a more proactive grant maker. It still has the ability and the flexibility to be reactive. The response to COVID is one example of being reactive in the moment, but at the same time being proactive, investments in education, investments in health, and a recent push towards trying to really focus on giving people hope and promise and opportunity in this community. 2008
and 2009 was very unsettling. If you think about it, you had back-to-back years where the market shrunk by about 20 to 25%. So I don't think our principal, our endowment went down that much. Didn't go down 50%, but it did go down significantly, and it did cause us to look at everything we were doing and see where there were opportunities to curb expenses and just preserve capital. And we continued to make grants. We're obligated to spend 5% of the corpus every year in grants, and of course we continued to do that. But I think the staff especially looked for ways to try to cut costs, cut expenses, and they did a lot of things differently during that period, and we persevered and made it through, and the market turned around. People do the best they can and try to, listen to the criticism, but not let it just disable you. And so I think just the stick-to-itiveness, if that's a word, the tenacity of the board members, and there's so many good things that have come out of Harvest in this community.
You can kind of look around these walls and see a lot of the things that Harvest has been, and a lot of times we don't, Harvest doesn't advertise that we were a part of it. And there's some really good work being done by a lot of people, and we're just a piece of that. But to keep some of those, to provide some wind in the sails for some of those organizations.
There have been projects that, didn't work out, but I think by and large, there have been a lot of very positive things that Harvest was able to accomplish in that 20 years. One thing that you could safely say about all of the board members is none of us had a lot of experience with private foundations. We had, we come from a variety of backgrounds, business primarily, but there were some doctors and teachers and other professionals, and we together, with the help of Allie Rothrock and some early leaders of the foundation, were able to, and a lot of good outside help.
It's always been made up of people that cared about this community, whether they be leaders of their own organization, government leaders, people that just cared about Martinsville and Henry County. There's so much to offer here. And for so many years here, I don't think we really looked at our natural resources. The things that were available here, we were so busy with manufacturing, we just forgot about the river and forgot about the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains and all the other things here. And we've really built on that in these 20 years.
Pretty quickly, we narrowed our focus to health, education, and community vitality. Most of the grants were in those three areas, and we spent a lot of money early on with trying to give teachers additional training above and beyond what the school system, the state would offer them. And we did that for all the schools in the area. We narrowed the focus to Martinsville and Henry County pretty quickly. That's the primary area that the hospital served. And again, we needed to focus our efforts, making this a place that people would want to live and work and stay. And so we spent money on the arts and quality of life things, but we also were involved in economic development from the very beginning.
One of the reasons I came in my role in economic development is because of the Harvest Foundation, because it provided resources for a community this size that you don't normally have to work with.
We've had a major focus the last 5 years in the area of economic development. And it's kind of the analogy of, when you're a dog chasing a car, when you're the dog, what do you do when you catch it?
Unemployment was the highest in the state, in the city of Martinsville, and so that was a real concern. Unemployment here now is a lot less, and it's not kind of a mission accomplished moment, it's look around and what goes with that. I mean, if you have a job, but we haven't moved the poverty line, have we really succeeded? And so we've started to address some of those underlying issues.
When the foundation started, they did a community assessment to look at what were the health needs in our community. And one of the things that rose to the top was affordable health care and accessible health care and prevention. One of the early things that the foundation did was the creation of the Coalition for Health and Wellness, of funding to implement that foundation, that organization, which has created 2 federally qualified healthcare centers, Bassett and in Ridgeway, that serve right at 5,000 people each year. A healthy workforce is needed, and it impacts the longevity of people's lives. And so I think when I look back, there's a variety of things that we've done in the community, but that healthcare system in place and continue to build and grow to meet the needs has been just monumental.
Once these jobs are here and people come here to take these jobs, in order to get the true benefits of our investment, we want those people to live here.
Staff here has shown a and the board has shown a particular ability to adapt with the growing need and the needs that change in this community.
Since the creation of the Harvest Foundation, our goal has been really to help the community. I think more recently, over the 20 years, that's evolved, especially more recently in that making sure that we're making decisions with the community and making sure that the community has a role in the decision making, that they know what we're doing.
The best thing about the Harvest Foundation, in my opinion, is that it is deeply embedded in the community. It's invested clearly with the money, but it's also invested with time and talent and sweat, blood, and tears. We've all worked together to try to bring this community out of the bunker. You know, we went a long time with a lot of bad news, but Harvest has allowed city, county, the EDC to work together as a team to create opportunities that may not have been there, most likely would not have been there, without the Harvest Foundation's influence and playing as part of that team.
I'm really interested in outdoor and in being an active lifestyle and encouraging people to improve their health through better physical activity. And I think the soccer complex is obviously huge. There's a tremendous amount of utilization there, and the youth soccer leagues that are there, and the tournaments that come in for soccer, for lacrosse, for other things. But the Dick and Willie Trail is one that I get out on the trail, I walk, ride a bicycle.
We felt early on as a Health Legacy Foundation was that we had not only responsibility, but a lot of motivation to try and promote healthy living within our community. And one of the ways that Harvest has been able to do that over time is the creation of ability and access to be outdoors and do things that really are in keeping with a healthy lifestyle.
I really truly believe that the Harvest Foundation has been the backbone to this community. They're looking out for this community, making sure that we're headed in the right direction. They do a lot of things that people don't know about.
The youth is the future of the community, and we didn't feel like necessarily we had our finger on the pulse of what the youth wanted, what were their concerns, what would bring them back to this community. And so the youth board was born out of some of that, those conversations.
We were given $50,000, which to the Harvest Foundation may not be a lot. To the general public, that's a whole lot of money. And we were able to decide what we wanted to use that money on. And it was a safe place to do that in. We had the advisors making sure that we were on the right track.
Just them allowing us that responsibility, I think, was really formative, and it set the precedent that, the youth really are the future. And if you invest in the future and in the future leaders, there's nowhere to go but up.
Out of the youth board, you get the Thanksgiving Eve dinner where they're serving hundreds of members of this community, thousands of members of this community who otherwise might not have a Thanksgiving meal.
It was a great opportunity to solve problems, make compromises, and appreciate the diversity that we had on the board at that time, and the different dynamics that we had that were bringing different ideas that I would have never thought of. And it was a great opportunity to just think outside the box and start something from scratch.
The board, in my personal experience, was a very formative experience in how my trajectory of my involvement in the community was and is to this day. And I think I speak for a lot of the members when I say that we had been in so many clubs. Everyone on the board was very, very involved in their school and the community and church groups. But this was like something we'd never seen before. And I'm really thankful that, Mr. House and everyone else trusted us with that responsibility and saw the potential.
I think the pandemic impacted us as well in different ways. A lot of nonprofits were struggling because they had to still provide their services, but in a way that was very alien to them. I think we kind of took the role of how do we address those most pressing needs, because we did have resources when the virus hit and we needed to have testing sites, and the local practices, the healthcare industry, didn't have the means to quickly ramp that up. We had the resources to pull everyone together and to establish a testing site that served all of the medical community. They could send people there.
We knew that our local businesses would struggle. Of course, there would be some setbacks due to the pandemic. And so it was important for us to find a way that we could fund these local small businesses that give so much time and effort and energy to our local community. Pay It Forward MHC provided small grants in the amount of $3,000 to local businesses. We funded $1 million to what's called the 30-Day Fund to distribute these small grants to local businesses.
It was almost debilitating to our child care industry, and they were more needed than ever because people had to get to work. So how do we help those who are on the front lines, have child care, cover those expenses for them, help them subsidize that? How do we help those child care centers stay open? And while about 40% of child care across the country is operational, 70% of ours was in a small community. And we managed to do that because there were systems already in place. We had partners who were there to reach out. We all came together and provided those resources. And I think it spoke volumes to the strength of a system that's been built around childcare. And while we still have work to do, we know that we built a good foundation upon which we're building on.
Probably one of my more favorite projects that we've undertaken is we did a pilot project with our seed grant, which provides 2.5 years of education at no cost to students who graduate from one of our local high schools.
It takes away the hassle of room and board, thinking about going to university, thinking about meal programs, thinking about coming out with so much money you have to pay back.
The easiest thing in the world to do is to write the check for the tuition. The more difficult thing is putting the supports and things in and around these students to ensure that they have an opportunity for success.
Over their lifespan, what they will earn with a certification in, say, welding versus if they had just graduated from high school and got a job is monumental. I mean, it is a game changer, not only for that one person, but expand that out. I mean, it changes the community.
The foundation doesn't look at it in terms of cost, look at it more in terms of an investment in the future of this, not only this community, but in this community's children. And we really try to focus on that it is an investment. And we hope that, part of that investment will be some of those children, coming back here and contributing in our community. And if not, at least wherever they go, they will be a contributing member to society.
To me, I feel like once I'm done, I want to come back and try to help, use my degree in some way to help the community with anything.
If you could start telling a kindergarten child every single year, from the time they're in kindergarten till the time that they graduate, that absolutely college is an option for you, no matter what your circumstances, no matter what anybody else has told you. If you tell a child for that many years, college is 100% an option for you, I think, it's a transformative event, in my opinion, and I think that hopefully that will bear fruit long-term for this community.
The foundation really is about community, and communities change all the time. I mean, communities are fluid, ever changing, and so it's important that the foundation is able to change with the times, able to adapt to any crisis that arises in the community.
As we start to look through the challenges in our community, you start digging into the layers of them, and they're more complicated than just one particular issue. So while we might have solved one challenge that we have in the community, it doesn't solve everything, and you have to sort of peel back those layers to figure out what the barriers are and what we need to be tackling. So just by having access to jobs doesn't mean you've actually solved all of the issues. It's one challenge we've done. Now we have to talk about transportation, housing, access to food, quality education. All of these things are connected, and all of these systems are connected. And the opportunity we have here is to look at them at the system level and to sort of tackle it that way.
There is still a lot to accomplish. I mean, this will always be an ongoing mission, but I think we've moved the needle in a lot of areas. I'm proud of a lot of the work we've done.
Today, the board is more diverse than it has been. I think diversity in backgrounds of people and the skill sets that they bring, as well as race and gender and age. And I look at the caliber of the board members, and I think it's excellent. They're very representative of the community.
I think what I'm most excited about with the Harvest Foundation over the next 20 years is really this piece with community engagement. We're really, getting into the trenches and making sure that everyone's voice is being heard. And I think that's something that's super exciting. And I think some of our best grants, some of our best projects are ahead because of that.
We spent 2021 digging deep into data and to talking with the community members to really understand what our community issues are and what the priorities of our community members are. So we did that in a lot of different ways. In addition to regular data, we had focus groups where we talked to general members of our community to understand what their life experience is and what their daily challenges are. We pulled work groups together to look at those issues and dive deep into different areas of focus that we could work on and what kind of strategies that we should be working on as a community. We did community surveys and had the opportunity to listen and to hear from people throughout the year. So our current strategic plan is based upon community input, community needs, and community priorities. And we think that that is going to help us get to the next level and build upon the success we've had from the last strategic plan.
The foundation, like anything else when you start, you are looking to try to address the need. And I think, if anything else, we've learned a lot in the first 20 years. We've learned what's worked, and we've learned a lot of things that didn't work. So I think our new strategic plan is kind of built on that. It's built on, okay, we brought a lot of great jobs to the community, and there's a lot of systems we've built around healthcare and a variety of things. But we still have a gigantic portion of our population living in poverty. So I think that while you find all the things that work, then it helps you identify those gaps that still are there. And so I think we'll continue to look at those pieces that we didn't really impact, as well as those new rising needs like housing and broadband and childcare.
Whenever I can, I am so eager and ready to come help, because I'm just really thankful for the foundation and for the fact that they believed in 13 really young people.
I just really appreciate their service to the community, and just their willingness to do things without always getting that recognition for it. And it's a lot of work, and it's a selfless job that they do.
Because we work in this space, we get to see what's happening in this community, which brings me hope. I get to see the projects that are happening. I get to see the dreams that are being achieved by people in this community who have a vision for what they want to accomplish, and they get to accomplish it. But when we talked with our community members last year, it was pretty clear that the general public doesn't see a lot of the progress that we're making, and a lot of people don't feel hope for themselves, and they don't feel hopeful for the community. And that's a real challenge, because if you don't have hope, you don't respond, you don't react, you don't take actions that are positive for you, your family, and for your community. And it's our challenge to help rebuild that hope, to get people connected to each other, connected back to the community, and to see a positive, hopeful future for themselves and for the future of Martinsville-Henry County.
The Harvest Foundation has done an incredibly consistent job of making sure that it has quality board members and quality staff members. And I think without that mix, it would be very difficult to have the level of hope and promise that this community has for what the foundation can do.
Ultimately, it boils down to hope and returning a sense of hope in this community. In a perfect world, when we're done with this, the goal is, I want everybody here to wake up and, think to themselves that tomorrow is going to be better than today.